Commissioner Wooster. There you go. Welcome to the August 8th, 2019 regular meeting of the Planning Commission. We're going to call it to order and get started with a salute to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Director Bauer, do we have any agenda changes?
No.
Thank you. This is an opportunity for the public to comment on any land use item of interest that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the commission and is not posted on the consent or regular agendas. California law prohibits the commission from taking action on any matter which is not posted on the agenda unless it is determined to be an emergency by the commission. Is there anybody who would like to spend 5 minutes talking to us about any item not on the agenda? There are none, so we will move on to the consent agenda. It's going to be a good morning. The consent agenda consists of a number of minutes to catch up. Is there any member of the public or the commission or staff who would like to pull any item from the consent agenda? Does anybody have any corrections to any of the minutes?
I wanted to thank the planning department for promoting us all to supervisor. Every one of these minutes. But maybe we should revert to planning commission.
What are you?
The title given for...
Oh, you're right.
Is,
Thank you.
welcome. Thank you for a moment of glory.
Ooh, get it off, please, as best as you can.
Maybe not necessarily a responsibility.
Are there any other comments on the minutes? Okay,
Yeah, I have a couple.
okay.
On the June 6th Planning Commission minutes, on the second page, under public comment on air quality, the third name listed is Will Moore with an SP. I think it should be M-O-O-R-E. That's the spelling in one of the later minutes, and also there is no Will Moore, M-O-R-E, in the phone book.
Kelly, you have gone above and beyond.
As expected.
Yes.
And then June 27th, there's a typo. Under public comment regarding Copper Valley, there looks like there's a comma after Tom Hicks. It doesn't belong there. That's it.
Just delete the comma after Tom Hicks.
Are there any further comments? Is there a motion?
Hold on a second.
Okay.
So are you suggesting that the comma after Tom Hicks be removed? Is that what you said?
Yes.
We don't do that. No, he's there. The comma just...
Oh, the comma. I thought you said
Comment, yes. Any public comments? I move that the minutes for all these meetings be accepted as corrected.
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? The The minutes are approved on a 4-0 vote with Commissioner Henderson absent. All righty. Gina, are you handling this item?
I am. Are we ready?
Yes. Okay. We're going to talk about the zoning amendment.
So this is number 3 of 13 of our California land conservation contracts this year. This one also includes a zoning amendment. Application is for Maurice and Amy Protzen on behalf of the Bar Down Enterprises. They propose to establish an agriculture preserve for 467.35 acres of land off Evans Road, located approximately 1.25 miles northeast of the Burson Road and State Highway 12 intersection near Valley Springs. Back in 1969, the county established Ag Preserve Contract number 34 for 464.85 acres of land. In January of this year, the applicant and his wife purchased 6 of the parcels that currently are encompassed by Ag Preserve number 34, in addition to a 2.5-acre parcel that is contiguous and previously known as the Southern Pacific Railroad right-of-way. The land is, the Protzens are continuing the lease agreement with Walter Valenti. He's been leasing the land for a considerable number of years. The current operation consists of 75 head of beef cattle being run on the property. Previous years reported a gross annual income from production of $50,000, which far exceeds the $2,000 requirement to be eligible for the Ag Preserve. 6 of the parcels already being in the Ag Preserve are currently zoned AP, where the one remaining parcel that is the previous railroad right-of-way is zoned unclassified. Pursuant to County Resolution 75-489, we need to rezone the one unclassified parcel to Agriculture Preserve, which signifies the land is in the Ag Preserve pursuant to the Williamson Act. The county general plan currently designates this property as natural resource lands, agriculture preserve with a high capability to sustain agricultural operations. The general plan update has this land designated as resource production. Consistent zonings in the resource production designation will be TP, timber production, general forest, GF, A1, general agriculture, and AP, agriculture preserve. The land is located in a moderate to high fire hazard area of the county. Managing the land for optimum grazing pastures will decrease fire fuels and reduce the fire hazard. Putting the land in agriculture preserve will also decrease the development potential of the property, minimizing the exposure of people and structures to wildfires. The California Natural Diversity Database identifies several special status species within 5 miles of the subject property. Maintaining open space will limit the residential development and help to preserve wildlife habitat. Water on the property includes 2 tributaries to the McCallamy River. Those are seasonal water sources. In addition, there are 4 wells that are currently drilled on the property. Between the 2, the water needs for the agricultural operation have been satisfied. Your county-appointed Agricultural Advisory Committee, under the direction of your Agricultural Commissioner, considered this application, and on a vote of 5-0, they're recommending the establishment of this contract. So in conclusion, we find that the land and production meet the minimum standards for the agriculture preserve. The application is consistent with the general plan. There are no conflicts with the general plan update. Maintaining the land in agriculture will reduce the fire hazard. Open space is beneficial for maintaining wildlife habitat. There is adequate water supply to sustain the agricultural operation, and the application is supported by your Agriculture Commissioner as well as your Agriculture Advisory Committee. Pursuant to CEQA guidelines, the project is exempt, and we have prepared a notice of exemption. So our recommendation to you is to disestablish Ag Preserve Contract Number 34 while simultaneously establishing Ag Preserve Contract Number 373 for a total of 467.35 acres of land, and to rezone the one unclassified parcel to AP pursuant to Board Resolution 75489, establishing uniform rules for administrating the agriculture preserves in Calaveras County. Any questions?
Well, it looks like a good move to me. I just have a question on the facts, which was, the question was crystallized when we got to the resolution. Paragraph 2 of the resolution, under evidence, the first sentence says that subject property is currently designated in the county general plan as the various designations by the Valley Springs Community Plan. And it seems to me we've got two different...
There's two different land use designations. So the majority of the property is in the county, in the general plan, designated as natural resource agricultural preserve. There is a small portion of that property that is designated by the Valley Springs Community Plan, and the Valley Springs Community Plan also designates that property as agriculture.
So we have two different sources designating property as
Yes.
agriculture? Okay, but if the Valley Springs Community Plan only applies to one of these, I think maybe we have
Correct.
to set it.
I believe it is I have to look at a map. It's the parcel that is furthest to the east.
Okay, when we get around to the resolution, it might be a good idea to clarify just what's
Okay, so-
designated by which.
All right. Oh, you want me to specifically call out the parcel that is...
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I
Yeah,
can do
because
that.
otherwise it looks as if it's designated in the general plan as all these things, and also by the Valley Springs Community Plan.
Okay, I can do that.
Great, thanks.
Any other comments, commissioners, or questions?
I had a suggested rewording on that paragraph too, because I
Good.
stumbled over the same problem that Commissioner Laddish addressed. I think it's pretty clear if you change it to say the subject property is currently designated in the county general plan as natural resource lands, comma, agricultural preserve, comma, and future single-family residential, comma, and as ag preserved by the Valley Springs Community Plan. Split them up.
I got that.
That'd be
Do
good.
you want me to still include the assessor parcel number
No, you don't.
for
no.
further clarity?
That
No?
would be fine.
That's fine then? Okay. Anything else?
I believe the applicant is here. Is there anything you would like to say? Is there any member of the public who would like to speak to this item?
Maurice and Amy Protson are the people to contact people for the property. And it says on behalf of Bar Down Enterprises LLC. And it looks to me like there's always a possibility that marijuana could be grown on these properties because the way it's being zoned, it allows it. And it's a large enough parcel that if, using your imagination, a person could put housing for employees and all manner of things. This happens to be in the vicinity that I live. And when I say vicinity, when I was growing up, 2 miles was our nearest neighbors. And so keep that in mind about neighbors. But I don't have a problem with people growing, farming. I grew up on a ranch and I love it. But I do have a problem with a product that drugs children and young people. And I believe that parents, grandparents, communities should have the recourse to follow, to sue if their child, their grandchild, their neighbor's child, a community's children is led down the garden path to a poison that hurts their brains and they cannot recover from it. And so the fact that this is a LLC makes it very difficult to find out who's really behind it. And I object to it. Thank you.
Are there any further public comments?
Good morning, myvalleysprings.com, Colleen Platt. We are supporting this ag preserve contract as we have, this is the third time this year, and we support these ag preserve contracts for the continuation and maintenance of land for agriculture and wildlife habitat. This is also a historical use of this property. It's been in cattle ranching for at least 50 years, documented, and I visit near that property. I know friends that live next to it. It's a beautiful property. It's always been in cattle. It's always been well maintained. I see no reason to protest against this. There's land zoned AP all over the county that has LLC attached to it and has nothing to do with cannabis. So I think that's an irrelevant point, and that this is a very good application, and we support it wholeheartedly. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, do you have any further comments? So are we ready to dig into the resolution?
Sure.
Ready for your recommendation?
Yes, we are ready.
Staff recommends the Planning Commission adopt Resolution 2019-015, recommending the Board of Supervisors approve application 2019-031, disestablishing Agriculture Preserve Contract Number 34, establishing Agriculture Preserve Contract Number 373, and to adopt an ordinance amending the zoning of Assessor Parcel Number 046-003-019 from unclassified to Agriculture Preserve based on the findings included therein.
As amended?
As amended.
And one further clarification amendment
Yes.
is, under the second whereas, when you get down to APN 046-003-016, then there's, in parentheses, 2.10.
Oh, thank you.
Put in the acres. It's a long way of getting there.
So that should read 2.50.
Oh, but acres
Yes.
after.
Acres,
I don't know about the 50.
it's 5.
That's what I thought it was.
Yes. So I will go ahead and change that to 2.5 acres.
Any further proposed amendments to the resolution?
Well, I had one, and it's on page 2, paragraph 1's at the top, under evidence, Article 19, categorical exemptions, section 15317, open space contracts or easements, exempts from CEQA, the establishment of agricultural preserves, and then I would add the 2 words, which is the making and renewing of open space contracts. And that was it.
Anything else, commissioners? Are we ready to have a motion?
I move that we adopt the resolution as amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes 4-0 with Commissioner Henderson absent. Okay. And now we are ready to get started on the final review by the Planning Commission of the 2019 housing element. I think Peter's going to lead us through that.
Yes. So this is the continued hearing, the housing element from July 25th. First, I have to apologize for the miscommunication. It's been a rather distracting last couple of weeks. General plan hearings for 2 full days at the board and trying to get this package put together. I totally missed the notes that I had made on the underline and strikeout version of the policies that we had. And so when I packaged everything up together, I just missed out some of the critical ones. So I emailed to the commission on Monday those revisions, and I provided hard copies of those as well. It's on the railing there for those and members of the public. There were 3 items that were still outstanding when that went out, and the package that I distributed this morning includes a correction to those 3. I'd just like to go over those because all the other things were simply edits that you had directed me to make, and hopefully I captured those properly. The 3 items, however, that were somewhat unique were that needed more research. The first one was on page 54, and the numbers are not really clear under the point-in-time count that was done last January, I believe it was, January, February. The estimates for those that were considered Calaveras County residents were between 40 and 80%. And so it's a very broad range, and I'm not sure why that number was so difficult to track down, other than oftentimes when we're doing those counts and we're interviewing homeless people, that some people were reluctant to provide all that information. So that line has been edited to strike out that the sentence, some are passing through Calaveras County, while others are long-term residents, with the sentence estimates from 2019 point in time. That's supposed to be count, not county. Count indicate that county residents make up 40 to 80% of the homeless population. And that's the best information that we have.
Bless you.
The next one was on page 77.
Bless you again.
And there was a discrepancy with the sentence just above table 4-44 that said it was lowest of conversion, and the table said very high. There were 2 funding sources, and one has expired, therefore making it very high. There's another loan that doesn't mature until 2039, but after review with HCD, they felt that because of the one loan going out, it was still a high risk of conversion. And so we just left the very high risk in the table and struck the line that said that it was low risk. There is a footnote on the bottom that references that loan. So I'm not sure it's a critical piece of information, but just for clarity, so to get rid of that discrepancy between low and very high, we just left it very high. The final edit was on page 109, and this took a little bit more research. We had different numbers, different size housing, and we felt that the best way to address that was to try to find the right page here. To compare apples to apples. So a 3,500 square foot home is not really something you would be considered in the affordable category. And since we're trying to look at affordable housing here, we thought we'd stick with the 1,400 square foot home, which is certainly more affordable. And so these numbers reflect that cost. We also went back and looked at the typical cost of construction, and the source that was used previously, the Craftsman Book Company, buildingcost.net, no longer really is available.
They're a terrible source anyway.
And so the consultants went to homeadvisor.com. I assume that's a legitimate.
Which is not a reliable source, and that's not a reliable number. That number's far too low for a single home being constructed in, a one-off home.
Okay.
That might be accurate for the developer's cost for a home.
If you have a better,
Yeah, RS Means is the best source, but it's complicated to work through it. So I just think if we're going to use this number, we have to say that this is the cost for a developer building multiple homes, and I think
Okay.
that that's a very reasonable number under those circumstances.
Okay.
So we could clarify that. And I think that's what we're talking about.
if we just say a 1,400 square foot single family production home?
Yes, exactly. Online sources are notoriously bad for California.
The last thing that probably we need to discuss, there were some emails that you received the last day or two about the policies. Before I get into that, let me reorganize my papers here so I don't get too mixed up. Any more mixed up than I already am, maybe? And it had to do, well, there are two things. One, the policy H5.1 talks about state and federal funding for rehab and maintaining owner-occupied housing. The measures that we added to the plan, H1I, J, and K, were intended to specifically address homes lost in the Butte fire and potential future disasters. Hopefully they don't happen, but it's possible. And it doesn't really correlate well with that policy. And we might want to add a policy that is sort of general in nature about, replacement homes lost in a disaster as opposed to referencing this one, which is somewhat different. And I don't have language for that at the moment, but we can certainly come up with something. We've got plenty of time today. So if you felt that was appropriate, we could work on some language to add a new policy on that.
I think that is appropriate. How does everybody else?
Yeah, I think that's great.
Well, I don't think that programs H, 1I, J, and K are limited to disasters.
No, not necessarily, but.
And I do agree that there should be some policies that these programs would implement, and maybe two of them, such as identify challenges in constructing or rebuilding houses, and evaluate feasibility of amending regulations to help meet those challenges, being one. The second would be provide fee relief for disaster victims seeking to rebuild.
Well, the second one may not be if we want to get all the subject matter about the disaster in there, it's more than fee relief. It's also the owner-builder.
What about just provide relief?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kelly, I assume you have that written down?
Yes.
Yeah, I just think we need some
Yeah. But
policy language that those actually kind of track to, that's all. So
But I
think
agree
That's
as to-
generally a good direction.
I agree as to having 2 new policies.
Do any of the commissioners have other items they want to discuss in here? I have a little list of kind of minor edits, of course.
I have one minor edit.
Okay.
No more changes. I'm sorry. You had your chance last week.
Well, mine is one that was, I think was suggested before and just got missed. It's a typo, so go ahead.
So, well, on page 95, I just think we need to work a little bit on the wording of the section under site plans and building permits. And I'm looking at items, or 6 and 7, where it says Public Works review or grading plan. I just think it needs to say Public Works reviews and approves grading plans, encroachments, the rest of it's all fine if that was added. Just the sentence is a little awkward. And then under item 7, the building department and other departments, other county departments will conduct the necessary inspections. So they all issue their own permits. So maybe building department and other county departments issue permits and conduct necessary inspections. Just probably in my world there, and I'm overly concerned about that. Okay, let's go back here. I noticed that in a number of our items in the evaluation of 2014, 2019 housing element programs, it says we anticipate adopting a new general plan in the spring or summer. I'm wondering if that should say summer or fall, just get replaced, because we missed our spring. Just, that's very minor. And I got that in a zillion little spots. And then on page 118, item H2J, I just wonder if we could reword that to match the changes we've made in the actual policies or implementation measures. Here we still have the parentheses, and it's in the co-housing, cooperative housing section. I just want to make the language parallel.
Are you still looking at the table,
Page 118, H2J. So it's a little different in the other section where we spent a lot of time talking about it. We didn't really talk about it here. So just making it match up.
well, this is the evaluation of the 2014, 2019. So these are the policies.
That is the wording from the
That is the word-
previous
yes,
exact,
yes.
okay, then that's fine. does that mean that, so, yeah, I got it.
Yeah, so
No-
all of these
no
are the
issue.
prior policy language rather
Yes.
than the ones we've amended.
That's all right. And then I think we are back to, so that's prior language too. This is the same item we were just discussing, that we need the new. It's just, I think that's pretty much it. For me, Kelly, what did you have?
Well, on page 104, paragraph 4E, there was a typo. It read, "Conditions or project approval" should be "conditions on project approval." That was one of the ones that was brought up previously.
I have a change written in from the last meeting where it was conditions of.
Okay, conditions of.
I think we
That's
might
right.
have made that change. Okay.
Yeah, we talked about it. Does anybody else have anything before we ask the public for some input? Would any member of the public like to speak to this item?
Colleen Platt, myvalleysprings.com. I was the one that sent the comments about H1I, 1J, and 1K. And after I sent the comments, I noticed that it was under the heading of new construction, new residential construction. So I went back to the policies under new residential construction, and it might relate to policy H1.2 under page 128, that says basically ensure that adopted policies, regulations, and procedures do not add unnecessarily to the time required for development or cost of construction for new housing, while still attaining other important county objectives such as public health and safety. So it seems to me that amending Title 25 would totally fall into that assistance for even new construction, and it wouldn't limit it to just disaster areas. It would allow that those programs to be applied to new construction in any area. So if that was the idea, not to limit it to disaster areas, which I think that was part of the thinking, that if you worked in a reference to policy H1.2, that might satisfy, a couple of the objectives there. In addition to the other suggestions I made, and you can discuss about the different policy wordings. And then the only other thing I wanted to mention, program H2D on page 137, and that's incentives for affordable housing. And there was a revision added to that by the planning director. Thank you very much. The county shall develop a program to provide fee reductions, these incentives for affordable housing. So I appreciate that. Underneath, under the time frame, I think that needs to be updated because the previous wording was on a project-by-project basis. But if you're developing a program, that needs to be done as other programs are developed under these programs. For example, H1J, develop a program by the end of 22 or 2020. You want to develop a program by a certain date, so you don't want just to have an ongoing as processed. Or
That edit was made, and it was included in the packet that was distributed this morning. That was something that when the changes that were proposed by the commission last meeting, we reviewed with HCD, and HCD had the same comment that we needed a time frame. So the edits that are passed out this morning included the time frame.
There's 1,000 pages there, and I don't know where it is in there.
Develop program by 2021, implement by 2022.
That's under H2D?
H2D.
Okay, thank you very much. I didn't know that. It's hard to sort through these
Yep,
different packages
it
and
does.
find out
Definitely
what's
says that.
going on. Okay. Okay, thank you very much.
Good morning. I haven't had a chance to get through the packet yet to see if anything about my comments are already addressed, so I'll just mention them verbally. I wrote most of you a letter the other day mentioning page 138 of the replacement pages, that H2G reads, encourage co-housing and cooperative housing, and the county shall amend the zoning code to include co-housing and/or cooperative housing as a permitted conditional use in residential and/or other zoning districts, and then goes on to say that it implements policy H2.7, and I noticed that it didn't seem that H2.7 included single-family attached, second units, duplexes, live work units, multifamily rentals, and then within subdivisions to diversify income levels served by these developments. And it seemed to me that language like multifamily detached would provide for the intent that you seem to have in the language you changed H2G to. And also, and then I questioned the within subdivisions. Is that language on purpose? Should it really be there? Or what would it mean if you just struck within subdivisions? And that's all. Thanks.
So I actually had notes that maybe H2.7 wasn't the right reference for that, because I do think H2.7 is intended to say exactly what it says, but we might need an H2.9 that is a better fit for this item. That whole little section seems like we misaligned some of our policies and implementation measures.
So would H2.9 be then referring directly to co-housing?
I think so.
These are general comments that may or may not affect the housing element. In Citrus Heights, an apartment complex has just been notified that their rent has been doubled. If, for instance, a plan like a Melrose was instituted in Calaveras County, the payment on that Melrose for each individual parcel would be possibly double their mortgage. And so people should be aware that Melrose may be a solution for government, but devastating for the individuals. And another item was that Chico's population has increased 20% since the Camp Fire. And one of the complaints that the populace is having there is that the government officials are so preoccupied with pot regulations that they cannot concentrate on the problems that they have that don't include pot. Thank you.
Is there anybody else who would like to speak before we bring it back to the commission? None, we'll close the public comment portion. And commissioners, let's work on this
Well, I'm wondering,
tracking issue.
this last issue that was brought up about co-housing and/or cooperative housing, perhaps the policy that implements most closely would be H-1.2, which is the same one that Ms. Platt just mentioned with respect to a different issue. Which says, ensure that its adopted policies, regulations, and procedures do not add unnecessarily to the time required for development or cost of construction for new housing, et cetera. And the implementation measure does deal with amending the zoning code to allow co-housing and/or cooperative housing as a permitted or conditioned use. So I think it's a better fit.
I think it's a better fit too. And might solve not adding one-to-one matchups, which is not our intent.
So that would just change the reference under
Yep.
H-2G implements policies would be H-1.2.
Sounds good to me.
Sounds good to me too. Okay. Did we have any proposed, you had wording proposed for the additional items.
Yes, I can read it again if that would be helpful.
I think that could be helpful.
Okay, there would be 2 new policies. And these would be policies that would be implemented by implementation measures or programs H-1I, H-1J, and H-1K. The first would be identify challenges in constructing or rebuilding houses, comma, and evaluate feasibility of amending regulations to help meet those challenges, period. The second would be provide relief for disaster victims seeking to rebuild.
On the first one, do we want to have, it's broader than amending regulations and ordinances? I mean, I realize an ordinance can,
I would think a regulations is the more generic term and would encompass everything. Was that your intention?
Yes.
perhaps take the S off. I think of regulations as something that are administratively produced with the authority of an ordinance. I think you're on absolutely the right track. I just don't want people to say, oh, well, this policy doesn't encompass amending ordinances.
You could add ordinances or regulations.
Yeah.
I was using regulations as not as a technical term, but as whatever the county does that hinders people in doing what they need to do.
I understand. I just think we ought to make sure it's clear, it's as broad as you intended.
I think those both sound like a good solution.
Peter, you have those?
Did you guys?
Yes,
guys
well,
got that?
I'll listen to the tape. I didn't write them down because I don't write that
Okay.
fast, and I can't read
Me
my scribbles
either.
in
You
either.
should see what I have, my version of
But
shorthand.
we'll get it from the tape, or if you have it written down, Commissioner Wooster, I'll get it from you that way. Yeah, those are fine. I think just the discussion of ordinance and regulations, regulations typically are more generic, which it could include standards, guidelines, ordinances. But if you want to put ordinances, I don't have any problem with that either.
I prefer to just say regulations, actually, in the more, and I think, and ordinances, then it's not, then do we have to list every type of constraint that could be there? If we just say regulations, it sounds more generic and more global to me, that when you break it out, then maybe it is being more specific, so. Just my opinion.
I think I agree with you.
I agree with that. I like that.
That's fine. That's regulation. we might contemplate not saying regulations, but regulation, which is the noun that would apply this broad.
That would be fine with me.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Is this the nitpickiest group?
Exact, that's all.
Does anybody have any other item that they would like to discuss before we talk about approving this?
Maybe I could just go through the list of changes that I have. So we're going to fix liens on page 5. We have the 2 new policies that Commissioner Wooster read into the record. There was an edit on page 95 that Commissioner Plotnick described. I made the note of it in my copy here. Which was the changes to the list of the steps that we need to go through regarding public works and
I
buildings.
just don't want to leave out the
Yeah.
other departments.
We need to go through sort of a general search on table 4.60 that regarding the time frame of when the general plan is to be adopted. Page 104, it's supposed to be of, not or. Did the commission agree that the reference to H1.2 is appropriate for measures H1J, I, J, and K?
And H-2D.
And H-2D, okay. And then the reference of measure H2G is to refer to H.12 rather than the one that was the one that currently references. I don't have it written down, but we'll change it to H.12 rather than what's currently. Were there any other changes? Did I miss anything else?
I have one other kind of minor thing on page 70. In the middle of the 4th paragraph, the 2nd paragraph under new residential energy standards. The sentence that begins with additions and alterations must also meet the Title 24 energy standards if they increase the conditioned instead of heated or cooled floor space of a building, or alter certain components.
If they increase the conditioned
Floor area
conditioned floor area.
of a building or alter certain components. It applies everywhere now, basically.
Alter certain components.
Components.
So that sentence would read, additions and alterations must also meet the Title 24 energy standards if they increase the conditioned floor area of a building or alter certain components. Okay.
All right.
And Peter, once we adopt this, could you provide us with the
I will have
those
a
pages with the,
Well, so I'll have a final clean copy, and I can provide that, a package of all of the edited pages without the
what I
underlined
need is
strikeout.
the edited pages that we're editing today that I can just put
Right,
into.
right,
Right.
yeah. And I'll package the whole thing up for the board anyway, so I'll have that as a final recommended draft housing element.
So you need a motion approving this and recommending that it be moved on to the Board of Supervisors?
Yes, so staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopt Resolution 2019-021, recommending the Board of Supervisors adopt a resolution approving the addendum to the 2010 Housing Element Negative Declaration and adopting the 2019 Housing Element Update.
Well, looking at that resolution, unless I have an outdated copy, under the second whereas clause, the second line, there's the word "for" is capitalized and shouldn't be. And then down at the bottom of the page, the last sentence, page 1, where it says, "None of the conditions described in section 15162 of the state CEQA guidelines have occurred." And I think that's referring to the conditions that appear in the following pages.
Yes.
And if that's true, then it should say, "None of the conditions described in 15162 of the state CEQA guidelines set forth below has occurred," because none is the subject. It should, instead of have occurred, should be has occurred.
Good, Patty.
And those were my only suggestions.
So,
As amended.
yes, do we have a motion as amended?
So moved.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes 4-0 with Commissioner Henderson absent.
Thank you.
Are there any commissioner reports?
Not for me. No, nothing to report.
I have nothing to report. Does the planning director have anything to share?
Well, you're probably aware now that the Board of Supervisors was just last Wednesday, tentatively approved the general plan with direction to prepare the final findings. We'll be working on those over the next couple of weeks and bring it back to the board probably in early September. Don't really know how long it's going to take because it's quite a lengthy document. We need to make sure our I's are dotted and T's are crossed on that one. I guess just a heads up, the next meeting will be a draft cannabis ordinance.
There's just no breathing room here
No.
anymore.
Tell me about it.
When will we be getting the draft?
As soon as we possibly can, almost there.
So,
We want to make sure you have enough time to review it.
Yes.
Yes.
I want to go back to the general plan. Can you summarize for us the kinds of edits that the Board of Supervisors directed you to make?
You know, I think they struggled with some of the same issues that you did. The resource production, land use mitigation,
And the
conversion mitigation was
special
probably one of the...
agricultural
Right.
crime.
So that was one thing that they struggled with. There were really very few significant changes. I think they were all very thankful of the hard work that you guys put in. Julie, can you remember? I'm sort of
No,
brain dead.
I actually was working on Canada,
Yeah.
In her mind.
so I don't remember, I didn't listen to the whole hearing.
Yeah.
Were there any significant changes to the land use map?
No, they, a portion of the former Copper Valley Estates site was changed to working lands. The portion that's closest to the...
The part we debated
Yeah.
on.
So that was changed to working lands. There was a couple of corrections that we noted. The Toyon area was designated as commercial, even though it's all zoned M4, so that was changed to industrial. There is a large tract of land near Calaveras that was part of the former Calaveras Cement Company. It wasn't actual mining going on there as far as I know, although there's a large potential old borrow pit. There's a lot of stockpile on that property, and the property owners no longer wanted to have that designated industrial and requested that be changed to resource production, and the board accepted that change. There were some minor changes to some of the language, concerns particularly by Supervisor Mills about some of the water policies, and some language changes there, but it didn't significantly change the direction of the plan. So we are almost there.
There. Looking forward to having final versions of everything.
Yes.
Is there anything else?
So as far as the cannabis ordinance, you'll be putting out an email saying that it's out there, and if we want to come down and grab a copy and not wait for a day for the mail to deliver it.
I can do that. Make sure I'll have copies available if you want it. I'll transmit it electronically. If you want a hard copy, I'll have printed copies available to either mail or pick up. And just let me know what you prefer, if you want to take the trip down to pick it up so you have it a day earlier. Otherwise, we'll put it in the mail for you.
I think that we are adjourned at just a couple minutes after 10 o'clock. It's a record.
Not quite.
Thank you, everybody.